since Tampon Tim is, I think he said he's an avowed socialist. If not, what he has done as a governor has definitely made it look like he's favorable to the idea of socialism. He also had his honeymoon in China, which is interesting, to go to communist China for your honeymoon in the 80s. I think right about the time of Tiananmen Square massacre. Anyway, I figured it would be a good idea to have a brief conversation about what socialism is. So I went on to ChatGPT and asked, what is socialism? Fairly easy question. And ChatGPT gave me 5 main points or key features to what socialism is. The first, collective ownership. A socialist system, in a socialist system, the means of production, factories, land, capital, are owned by the public or the state. This contrasts with capitalism, where these means are privately owned by individuals or corporations. So with ownership definitely comes responsibility, but it also comes a certain amount of rights, I would say. And the more socialized your community is, the less rights the individual has for their property. So that really makes me wonder about when we have property taxes. How much of your property are you taxed on? Am I taxed on this hat? Not after sales? No, it's mine forever. Am I taxed on precious metals that I get after sales tax? No, it's mine forever. One of the few things that we are taxed on in perpetuity in this nation, depending on the state, is property. So does that mean you don't really own your property, more renting your property from the state? What if you don't pay your property tax? Well, your land gets taken away, or you get taken away to prison. So, and also with land, how much can you do on that land without the say-so of the government? Can I dig a hole? In some places, no, not without a permit. Not without getting permission from the state can I dig a hole. Can I plant a tree? No, not unless I get a permit from the government, from the state. I think it's a soil disturbance permit is what you need. And that's not ownership of property. That's you renting the property from the government, I would say, in my mind. Okay, number 2, centralized planning. Socialism often involves centralized economic planning, where the government makes decisions about what to produce, how to produce it, and who gets the products. This is intended to ensure that resources are allocated based on social needs rather than market demand. So price fixing is actually a really good example of that. With price fixing, like rent control, it's not fair that landlords should be able to raise the rent on their tenants. Okay, when you do that, that takes away any interest in more apartments being created, in landlords keeping the apartments nice to attract different clientele. Because if you have higher demand, you'll have greater supply. And if you have more supply and the demand stays level, then the price will go down. So when you freeze the amount of capital that can be produced by that, all of a sudden the demand will just keep going up and the price stays the same, so the quality suffers. And that's when you get, what are they called? Slumlords. There we go, slumlords, where they just don't care about how nice the building is because it doesn't matter. The value of it has been maxed out. I could, if I let the building fall apart and then we build a new building with more apartments at that point in time, that those prices haven't been fixed. So then I can make a lot more money. There were a lot of shows about that in the 80s or early 90s. I kind of remember. But if you leave the market to function properly, then the more people that are wanting apartments, the more construction there is to meet that demand, because they want the money for those apartments. And the more you have of apartments being created, all of a sudden there's a lot of apartments around. Landlords are going to have to drop their prices to get people into their apartments, because an empty apartment is a lot worse than an apartment at 75% of what they were getting previously. And it's like that with literally everything, every different service or product in the economy. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory. One example I really, really like is those evil people that are price gouging water during a hurricane. How dare they? But if the prices go up, who will want the water? Only those that are willing to pay that price. Who is willing to provide more water? Those that are wanting to get those higher prices. So you'll have people, entrepreneurial people, saying, you know what? Yeah, it's a hurricane, but I've got a big truck with a large bed that I can put a lot of water in. And I can drive it into that hurricane, or just after that hurricane, I can drive that bed in, and all that water, that'll turn into cash. Because all those people, they will want water. Their water's shut off, their house water is no longer drinkable, whatever it might be the case. And the moment that happens, prices will go back down and things will equalize again. So yes, price gouging sounds bad, but no, it's the market functioning properly, and people automatically limiting the amount of people that will buy that product to those who really need it. The higher the price, the higher the need threshold before they will actually purchase that water. That way, anybody that's like, I'm kind of thirsty, but I could wait a couple hours, all of a sudden they won't buy that water because they go, that is beyond what I'm willing to pay for it. But if you eliminate that opportunity for the prices to fluctuate, then someone will go, well, if I don't get this water now, then I might not be able to get it later. I'll get 3 cases of water. All of a sudden the water's gone, and the next 4 or 5 people, they won't be able to get any water, even though they might have needed it more than that first person that got all of it. So what's worse, hoarding or price gouging in that regard? I would say hoarding is worse, because that way you're not able to spread the product around to all of the individuals that might actually need it more. So anyway, social welfare. Socialist systems typically include a strong focus on social welfare programs, such as universal health care, interesting, education, interesting, social security, aimed at ensuring all members of society have access to basic needs. What are basic needs? Is a car a basic need? Is a house a basic need? Is this hat a basic need? Are my clothes a basic need? Is my food a basic need? Well, that depends on the type of food. Everybody is different. Everybody's bodies are different. Everybody's diets are different. A basic need for someone might be they need to have gluten-free bread, or else if they get normal bread, they'll have a bad reaction. If they don't get their insulin, they'll have issues, and so on and so forth. So because everyone's different, if you try and make everyone and everything equal, that all automatically makes inequalities. What if I'm a very healthy person and I take care of my body and I only want catastrophic life insurance or health insurance, or I don't even want health insurance at all? I never get sick, haven't gotten sick in 10 years, so I don't want any type of insurance whatsoever. I'm single, don't even need life insurance. Is that okay in a socialist environment? No. But in a capitalist environment, say I go, I'm very healthy now, but I am concerned about if something really crazy happens, I get a yield sign in my spleen and I have to go to the hospital, I would like some catastrophic health insurance for that instance. Or I'm really healthy now, what if I get cancer? Or whatever it may be. Catastrophic insurance makes a lot of sense in that regard, because those medical bills, although unlikely to happen for most people, if they do happen, that's a very difficult thing for you to deal with in your life. Cancer treatments can be upwards of millions of dollars. An extended hospital stay after an accident could be $50,000, $100,000, depending on how long you stay there, what type of surgery it is, et cetera, et cetera. So is it really for the benefit of society to force everybody to have universal health care, universal education? I definitely think education is important. However, what type of education are we talking about? Does everybody need 18th century French literature? Does everybody need trigonometry? Does everybody need to understand the intricacies of the Soviet economic system? No. And some of those I don't understand. And a lot of the things that I was taught in high school that I did understand at that point in time, I have never used, and I probably will never use. And that's why I'm much more along the lines of, let's teach children how to learn, and then let them teach themselves what they find interesting and what they can use for the future. So if I'm interested in welding, I probably need to have some applied mathematics specific to welding. What temperature the weld needs to be at, the amount of electricity that needs to be going through the welder, the amount of wire fed depending on the type of welding you do. That makes a lot of sense. If you're doing HVAC, you need to understand airflows through there. So you need to know cubic feet meter for airflow. And so there's some really interesting math stuff within there. But that's all applied to that specific thing. So if children understand the basics of math, rhetoric, and logic, or grammar, rhetoric, and logic, they can themselves learn everything else if they're taught the value and the importance of learning and become polymaths. Children that grow up into adults, that become jacks of all trades and masters of some. So yeah, social welfare, not really beneficial. And Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. The only reason why anyone is getting any Social Security now is because people are paying into it now. All the money that the people that are getting it now paid into it, they paid for the people previously, and so on and so forth, all the way back. The moment we stop that, it all falls apart. And part of that is because the government has been raiding the coffers of Social Security for a few years now. And really, shouldn't we be focusing on ourselves in that regard? Why am I forced to pay the government to do my own retirement when the money that I'm giving them, they're not putting in a lockbox for my retirement, they're paying for someone else's retirement. I would much prefer the responsibility of my retirement being on me, and by extension on my family. If I run into hard times, and if not me, not my family, then my community or my religion. My dad, when I was young, he said that I should rely on my family, my community, my religion, and last of all, my government. Specifically, but because of these things. If you're reliant on the government, then the government has control over you. And the proper role of government shouldn't be a nanny state. It should be more of a night watchman, someone who can protect your rights, your property, your person from outside influences that are trying to harm you in some way, like socialists. Okay. Economic equality. A core goal of socialism is to reduce economic disparities by redistributing wealth. This may involve progressive taxation, wealth redistribution, and policies that aim to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. That sounds very nice. It sounds wonderful. The only problem with that is who is in control of making sure that wealth is redistributed. There was and this might be a bit apocryphal, but there was a teacher once who went to all of his students and said, I think we're going to try socialism in this class. And we've got a certain amount of A's, a certain amount of B's, a certain amount of C's, a certain amount of D's, and a certain amount of F's in this class. A standard deviation of students. Very smart ones, all the way to ones that are not excelling in the class. So we're going to try doing some socialism in there. So whatever the average of the class is, that's the grade that everyone will get. And all of the kids that were failing at that point went, woohoo, we're going to pass the class. And all the A students went, what? Hey, I earned that. I earned that grade. That's not fair. But because enough students said they wanted to do it, the A students were outvoted. So on that first test, between the A's and the F's and everybody in between, they averaged out about a C. And the F students and the D students were very happy about that. And the B and the A students were not exactly happy about that. And then the next test came along and the A students were like, well, if we're all just going to get C's, why study? So they didn't. And instead of getting a C, they got a D. And the F students were still pretty happy, and the D students were like, that's what I would have gotten anyway, so whatever. The B students were not exactly happy, and the A students were not happy either. And so the next test came along, and everybody got Fs. Why is that? Because the F students didn't study, the D students didn't study, the B students or the C students didn't study, the B students didn't study, and the A students didn't study. Nobody studied because they all figured we're all just going to get the average anyway, so I'll just let everybody else do the heavy work and I'll just coast along with everybody else. So nobody did the work, nobody got a good grade, everybody failed. And that is socialism. There was when the Soviet Union fell, missionaries went in to try and help the starving people in Ukraine and Russia. And when they got there, they had to teach the farmers how to farm again, because no one really understood how to actually get a good yield. So like potato farmers went over there and they taught them that Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, or of the world, I think they call it, I don't know, breadbasket of something. They had lost the knowledge and ability to farm well, because over the years, it just didn't matter anymore. Actually, the Stalin, he stole food from the Ukrainians to feed Moscow, I think. And when the amount of food that Ukraine was sending to Moscow started dropping, the communists went in and said, "Hey, we need our food. What are you doing?" And they said, "It's been a bad year. We need to keep the seed potatoes or whatever other seeds they have. We've got to keep these for the next year's crop." And the communists said, "No, those are for us." And so a lot of Ukrainians starved and died because of that. So it goes back to the market forces. If the Ukrainians were being paid for their food, the higher the price, the more they would want to send more food that direction because they'd be making more money. As the price drops, it'd be less likely they'd want to send as much food because they're wanting to store more for the next year for their animals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that all the products and the market would equalize that way. But when you force equality, you gain more and more inequality. And you can see that in history as well. All of these wonderful, wonderful social programs that are meant to equalize everybody. Well, some people are more equal than others. There was a video that I just watched. Callum, I don't know Callum's last name. He has a YouTube channel called Britannica. And he did a tour of Rhodesia, which is now called Zimbabwe. I think they changed the name to Zimbabwe. And it was once an English colony up till 1950, when the UN forced England to give it up. And when they gave it up, the socialists moved in, and now people look at the rusted train tracks and look at the broken buildings and the shattered economy, and they say, "I remember my dad told me once that he rode a train." The reason why it was called Rhodesia is because of Rhodes. I can't remember his first name. The guy that was named the Rhodes Scholar, that guy, Rhodes. He wanted to make a train, a rail line all the way from, I think, Johannesburg South Africa, all the way up to Cairo. So he went through conquering or communicating with all the different African tribes to make that a possibility. And in doing so, formed Rhodesia, and it became a wonderful place as far as what it looks, the ruins looks like. It used to be a wonderful place. And Callum went through and he could see the remnants of the British Empire in there. And he said that it was amazing how much it looked like the empire that once was, except it kind of turned into a ghost town type of a situation. So buildings were just left empty, trains were left empty. It just fell apart. So yeah. Number 5, worker control. In some forms of socialism, workers have a say in the management of enterprises, either through direct ownership, as in cooperatives, or through state ownership, where the government acts in the interest of the workers. Yeah, that, again, sounds nice. So much of socialism sounds very nice. But if workers have a say in the management of the enterprise and the workers don't know how to manage, then the enterprise fails. If the government or state has ownership in the enterprise, the state's been known to be extremely ineffective and inefficient in its management of most everything. So again, it would fail. The Soviet Union actually would not have survived World War II if not for the Lend-Lease program. And when we ended the Lend-Lease program, Russia said, "How dare you?" Instead of, "Thanks for the help for all of those years. Without you, we would have been conquered by the Germans." They went, "No, you guys should have just kept giving us stuff forever." It doesn't work very well. Anyway, those are the 5 key features of socialism. And they don't work very well. Some of them sound very nice in the onset, but it leads to a lot of pain, anguish, and in a lot of cases, death when you actually follow them to their natural conclusion. Anyway, hopefully we won't get socialists, or won't get socialists this time around in government, because we've already had too much of that already. If you like what I have to say, please like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.